gonna win. Long as you're happy, you're always gonna grin. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. Never gonna lose, never gonna win. Long as you're happy, you're always gonna grin. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. Good afternoon, Richard. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks for having me on the show again.
No. Thanks ever so much for coming back. You came on my show a while back when we had yourself and Lucy and Derma. Yeah. I normally have this scrolling, so that really threw me then. I do apologize. Let's have that at the bottom. So if anyone's got any questions for you, they can ask them. But I just wanted to have you on the show because as people know, I used to work with Heather Townsend at the Accountants Millionaires Club, and you're doing a similar sort of thing. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us a little bit about what you're doing, because I love this.
Well, I'm a chartered accountant. Came into the profession in 1981, so I've been around a little bit.
Do you think you might like it? That's only 40. That's only 41 years. You should know by now.
I sort of. Do you know what? For 6 months, I hated it, and then for the rest of the time, I've loved it. But for the first 6 months, I thought, "Oh my God, what have I done?" I wanted to go into. I was down from your neck of the woods. I went to uni down in Plymouth, and I was.
Oh right, okay.
I was going to do river management. I was going to spend my life standing in water on the moors. And instead, I found myself sitting behind a desk doing double entry. So no, chartered accountant, worked for all sizes of firms from top four downwards. I was partner at national firm and regional firm. In 1993, set up the first of our own firms with my partner from scratch, which we did until 2008. Sold the last of those in 2008. And since then, I've worked with accountants rather than with SMEs all around the world. Originally, worked in Australia, the USA, predominantly the UK these days, but with owner-managed accountants who essentially have the same problems that their clients have, and it's working with them.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant as well, isn't it? Because they come to you, they know they've got a few problems, and you help them see the light. And what's more rewarding than that, Richard?
I love my work. I absolutely love what I do. I think that it's partly age. You do reach a point where you worry less about what everybody thinks of you, and you become a bit more honest with yourself. But as you say, it's very rewarding. Having been in that world for so long, and if there's a mistake to be made in running an accounting firm, then I've made it over the last 40 odd years. And so to know the pressures and the stresses, and to actually work with so many nice people, and know how genuine they are, and the fact that they're not getting the rewards and the satisfactions they deserve. So when that comes through, and when you see a smile on their face, it's brilliant. It's great to do.
Yeah, I've spoken with quite a few accountants in my time that have lost the love for their business, and that was one of the reasons I didn't want to set up on my own, because you sort of like think, why are you doing this if you hate it? And it just really, really lost the passion. The sparkle had gone out of their eyes and everything. And you just re-energize them, get them then that mojo back. And they're different people, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's really where I start from. We get called in a lot of the time to, can you fix my staff? Can you fix my clients? Can you fix our marketing? Can you fix our systems? And the answer is usually almost certainly, but we're going to need to start with you, because as you say, if it's not there at the head of the firm, if that energy and that drive and that commitment isn't there, if the smile isn't on their face, then everything else is just so much harder. And flip it around, you get a leader of business who has got a very clear vision, very clear plan, loves what they do, understands why they do it. It's the classic Simon Sinek side of things, really. But if they've forgotten why they get up in the mornings, then you've got to fix that first. Otherwise, go and work for Tesco. It's a lot less stressful. It's a lot easier.
And probably by the time you worked out how many hours you're working, you're probably better paid.
Probably, yeah.
That's the funny thing. So, can you break down exactly what you do. Say I'm running a small practice and I've lost my love and you know, I'm struggling to get staff and I've got too many clients that I'm spending too much time on. So what do you do? How do you help my business? What's the program? How does it all work, please, Richard?
I always used to say that I didn't have a process, that that it started from a conversation, but actually I worked out over the years that I did have a process because the conversations always went down a similar route. So there are 9 areas of the business that we focus on. I have a classic triangular model for an accounting firm as opposed to the traditional silo model. And the 3 corners of that triangle are the leadership of the firm, the internal management and processes, and then the external management and processes. So you can then break the leadership down into the vision itself, re-establishing that vision, getting that clarity of vision in place, how the leader of the business then influences others, in other words, looking at their own performance and their own sort of approach to the business, and then what the plan is. Once you've got those 3 in place, then we move on to the next 3, which is the internal side. So it's the team, it's the systems and processes, and it's the communication systems that they have. And then finally, we move on to the externals, which ironically is where most accountants want to start. They want to start by getting new clients. And we'll go, that's fine, but you can't look after the ones you've got at the moment. So let's fix the internals first. And so that's when we move then onto the brand, onto the marketing, onto the client relationships, the client engagement, and the outside firm. So it's there's 9 steps around that triangle. And what's equally as important as those points is those lines of communication between them. Everyone knows, everyone's on the same page fundamentally. That's the key thing. And they're seeing, you're attracting the right clients and you're attracting the right team because they're seeing the right image of the firm and what that firm's truly all about. So you can't sort of take one piece out of that. You can make small improvements, but if you start at the top, then actually by the time you got halfway through, you fix 90% of what you wanted to fix, because everyone's engaged, everyone knows what they're doing, everyone knows the plan, and everyone's getting on with it.
Yeah, when it all comes together, it's magical, isn't it? But if not, I've got this vision in my head now of making a cake. If we don't put enough bicarb in or whatever it is you put in to make it rise, then it's not going to be very nice. If you've got cheap, nasty butter, it's not going to work. If the eggs are off, it's not going to work. And there's it's that sort of thing, isn't it? It's just making sure that all these little components that we forget about because we're so busy in it, we forget about everything else. And I guess by having someone like yourselves on the outside looking in, you can help make that difference.
I think it's also about pushing back the natural boundaries that have been built around them. As accountants, we're probably the worst people to be trained as business people, because we're trained to be risk averse, we're trained to be cautious, we're trained to sort of look at the downside all the time and what have you. And that's not a great place to start from an entrepreneurial point of view. Accountants quite often will feel the need to operate within a box that's got an accountant stamped on the outside of it. And so one of the starting points for us is to see whether they are prepared to sort of throw that box away and go, look, are you prepared to do it your way? Whatever that may be, we don't need to know that yet, but are you prepared to do it your way? Are you prepared to be different? Not dramatically so, but have your business as opposed to something that reflects everybody else's business or the business that everybody else tells that you should have. Because if they are, we're going to work well together. It's not wrong if they say, no, I want to be a standard accountant. That's great. Let's make sure you're a really good standard accountant then. But it's about making people aware that they don't have to follow that set course that I think as accountants we're too often trying to do. Those who we work with will know I have a thing about Australian MasterChef. I don't know whether you've ever watched it at all.
No.
I'll bore you at some point with Australian MasterChef, but obviously the BBC has the original MasterChef.
Yeah.
In Australia, they have their own version, which is just poles apart.
Because it's just barbecues.
Partly. But it's all about inspiring people and getting people to push back their boundaries. So it's not just about judging them and saying whether it's good or bad, which is sort of the UK approach. It's about, look, you can do so much more. Let's explore this. And the difference that you see it makes to the ability of people to develop through this program is phenomenal. And I often use examples from that program when we're talking to people, because it's about, let's inspire you. Let's get you to be the best version of what you can be. And I love bringing that into accounting world, because people don't talk to accountants like that. They don't talk about inspiration and fun and happiness, and reward doesn't just have to be about what you do on the bottom line.
No, absolutely. I love that. I think that's brilliant. So you're talking to lots of accountants and bookkeepers. What challenges are you seeing them have right at the moment, Richard?
I think the biggest challenge at the moment, in a sense, is the sheer scale and range of the challenges. I think the number one challenge for many accountants and bookkeepers today is just staying focused and knowing what to focus on. You know yourself. One of the most common things you'll hear is, "I just don't know where to start." And it's with so much change happening, with digital transformation, with the chaos that we have around us, with politics, with post-COVID, with all the challenges socially, with the new generations coming through, the different things they want. There's so many things happen, so much change happening. And I think the biggest problem that many firms face is, look, I really genuinely, I could list you 1,001 things that we need to do. I just don't know where to start and which one to start with. And I think that's that. They then start that eats away at their confidence then, because quite often they know the stuff they should be doing, but they don't have a plan, or that plan has become clouded and lost.
And this is where a coach comes in, because you're looking down from above. You're seeing a totally different view to what they're seeing, and then you can point them in the right direction. So all right, I've got 1,001 things to do. Which one do I do first then, Richard?
Well, you start with yourself. Funny enough, I've just come off a call with someone this morning, a very similar sort of thing. And the role of a coach, we mentor and we coach. So there's slightly different roles. What we don't do is consult. I just won't go in and tell people what they've got to do. But mentoring is, I see it as the personal side. The coaching is then how you mentoring switches the mind on. Coaching is then helping them to develop that more. So a lot of it is around asking the right questions, because often, so you can clear that fog. It will start with them. If you go back to that model, the triangular model we place, once they've got a clear vision of why they're doing what they're doing, of where they want to go, then you can create a plan from that. And once you've got that plan, then you can tackle change, because you've got a structure to go to. If you're just, as most accountants find themselves doing, if you're just reacting to the latest problem or to the most pressing problem, then you're not going to progress forward. At best, you're keeping yourself afloat. So this is about saying, look, we're going to need to break this circle. At the moment, you feel that you're too busy to address all of these problems, and you've got too many problems to address. We need to break the circle. They're all practical problems. We can't ignore them, but let's just stop, draw a breath, take a step backwards, look at where we're going and why we're going that route. Then we can start to reintroduce those problems, because all of a sudden you'll realize that actually the one that you thought was the most pressing, maybe it's not. Maybe there's another one here that actually, if you deal with that, 20 of these will either go away or they just don't matter. So it's getting that clarity of focus back into their mindset. And you do need to strip it back to basics. I know it all sounds very management consultancy when you go, we need to do a vision and a plan, but you do. If you don't know where you're going, you ain't going to get there.
That is, you must do the sat nav story.
Yes.
All the time. You don't jump in your car and just drive. You plug it into the sat nav and you know where you're going. And I think that's fundamental, isn't it? I think we forget that at times.
And I think it's that step before that as well. What's the purpose of the journey? Why are you getting into your car in the first place?
Yeah.
Because when you're sitting there stuck in the inevitable traffic or rest of it, you've got to still think, why don't you just turn around and go home? Well, no, I can't do that, because this is what I've got to get to here for this reason. I've got to pick this person up, or I've got to go to that interview. So you know why you're doing it. Otherwise, you go, okay, I'll just turn around and go home, or I'll just pull into a late line and stay where I am.
Oh dear. So, you do all this with your clients. Do you call them clients? Do you call them members? How
members? We normally refer to them. Yeah.
You call them as members. And is this one-to-one? Is it group? How does all of that work?
It's a mixture. The business started one-to-one. and we still work on a one-to-one basis with currently about a dozen firms and their teams and the partners themselves. And we also have an online approach as well. And there's a hybrid where we do a bit of both. But it's essentially it's whatever works for the particular circumstance of that client. Meaning, you're down in Devon, for instance, working one-to-one from, we're based in the Midlands, working one-to-one in Devon isn't that, you get a bit bored of the M5 after a while. But of course we can work online, for instance. So we've got 3 or 4 different ways of approaching it that will just sort of suit the circumstances and the budget of that particular firm.
Brilliant.
And that enables us to work internationally as well. So we work in North America and Australia on that basis.
I was going to say that's a long way to travel, isn't it? Just for
I'm still waiting for the invite to Sydney, but
So what's your top tip that accountants and bookkeepers can do right now, Richard?
I think my top tip for any firm would be to, first of all, understand what sort of firm you're trying to be. Again, back to this point of change. The role of the accountant has changed, is changing. When I first came into the profession in 1981, it was at the tail end of what I would call the old school accountancy, where the accountant was somebody in the community, where it was all about the person, where clients, we didn't have product, we had client relationships. We then went through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, where everything became product and we're trying to sell product. And I think we lost an element of that because of the way things are changing and because of the threat, if you like, from digitalization. The people side of the business has become more and more important to us again. So I think getting back, understand, that means that we've got to look at our firms and go, okay, right, well, maybe we don't need to be the sort of firm that we've been trying to be up to this point in time. It's not just about, are you an online firm or are you a boutique firm or whatever. It's about what sort of firm do you want to be? Because it's a very, very fundamental question. It doesn't matter whether it's an accountant, bookkeeper. It's the same with all their clients as well. What sort of business are you actually trying to build here? Let's just declutter everything else, because conversations always start with problems. Clients come with problems, members come with problems. And sometimes you've got to go, okay, maybe we're focusing on the wrong thing here. Let's just take a step back. And so it's creating that breathing space, which is very, very hard when you're super busy and you've got your own clients demanding your attention. And actually you need to be quite brave to do it. To say, look, I'm going to take half day out of the business and I'm just going to think. But that can be a pivotal moment for your firm. And if you don't do that, you are constantly banging your head against the same brick wall. So it's taking that step. Don't worry about how we're going to do it. That's not, that's for later. The starting point is just to take a step back and go, right, hang on a minute. Why am I doing this? What do I actually want to achieve? I know going years back now, when we set up our own firm, for a couple of years, we grew fantastically because it was, we were the new kids on the block. It's fairly easy to pick up clients on that basis. We reached a point where we were just slogging away. We're a husband and wife team, so we were just slogging away, working all hours, not getting breaks. And we sat down and went, right, it can't carry on like this. This was not the dream. So we're going to sit down, we're going to replan the business. And then if we can achieve that within 2 years, brilliant. If we can't, we'll put our hands up and try something else. But we can't just keep doing this. And that was a big moment for us, as well as learning that things like being happy should be right up there on the agenda.
That is key. That is key.
Let's the business. Let's get back to it being about you first of all.
Because
if you're not happy, nothing else is going to work.
No, absolutely. And so you've mentioned Simon Sinek. You're talking about why once you know that, life becomes an awful lot easier as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, and these all of a sudden these 1,001 problems become 5 because the rest right now do not matter.
Yeah.
Why am I stressing about that when actually this is what we're trying to achieve?
Yeah, no, and you can see that mic drop moment, can't you, when it actually happens?
Yeah, it impacts on some real fundamentals. We do a lot of work on client segmentation, for instance, because so many firms are working with clients who, quite frankly, they shouldn't be working with. And once you understand that and go, okay, well, nobody likes this client. They don't pay their bills. They just cause us a load of hassle. We don't make any money on them. Hang on, we've been working for them for the last 6 years. Why are we doing that? And it's just, once you understand that the sort of client that you want, because you understand the sort of firm that you want, then something like that becomes a lot easier. It's like, well, let's just get rid. And all of a sudden the team are going, yay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was working with, you'll love this one. I was working with a client once, and I was going through the client segmentation and sort of like, breaking it down. And they said, well, I send an awful lot of emails out, so I'm going to do it based on number of emails and the cost per email. And so what they did is they worked out how, because they had some sort of tracking software on emails, and they knew that they'd sent this client this number of emails in the year and this client this number of emails in the year, and they charged them this much and that client this much. And basically this client got rid of certain clients based on the cost per email. And so it was the value brought in per email. So if they were charging him £100 a month and he was sending 100 emails, that's £1 an email. But if he was only sending 1 email a month, then it's £100 an email. So he'd keep that client and get rid of that. And I just love how accountants think all these things up, but it was just really cool. So like this client, and some of them, just literally sending an email, chasing for stuff. I need this, I need that. I can't do anything until you sent me this, sent me that, sent me that. And some of these clients, the number of emails that this accountant was sending is just crazy. So yeah, it's just getting your head out of that, isn't it? And getting rid of those.
And recognizing that it should be an equal relationship. It should be a balanced relationship. This is not a master-servant relationship with our clients, which is where most clients see, it seems to end up. And it's like, no, if it doesn't work for us, we're entitled to sit down with that client and have a conversation where it says, look, this doesn't work for us. And the client's equally entitled to go, well, actually, I've got these problems as well. Great. We either fix it together or we call it quits. But let's not just keep on slogging it. We talk about the 80-20 rule when it comes to turnover and profit and all the rest of it. Well, it's the same rule with problems. 20% of your clients will bring you 8% of your problems. So let's fix them or get rid of them. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you have a story you can share with us of the best way you've helped an accountant or a bookkeeper that you can share with us, Richard?
It's a good question, because the wins that we get are on so many different levels. I mean, at one end, for instance, certainly what I can think of one situation where we brought 2 firms together, where we got 2 terrific firms. We've been working with both of them. So the cultures that were developing were very, very similar. One was an older firm with succession issues. One was a younger firm with resource issues. So we went, well, actually, there's a fix here. So brought them 2 together. That single firm is now doing fantastic stuff going forward.
Was that Mr. Ernst and Mr. Young?
I'm not sure.
Well done, Richard.
So there's that sort of thing. But equally, I was talking to a client about 6-7 weeks ago now. They just had their first proper week off with their family in 6 years. Their first week where they didn't need to take the phone, and they'd had a proper holiday, and they'd had all sorts of issues with family illness and all the rest of it. And they were like, that we just can't thank you enough. That was just amazing. And both of those I get the same buzz from, because it's helping. It's not what we do. There's no rocket science in what we do. It's just helping nice people to get a smile back on their face. Whatever does that. It's just, I know it sounds a bit soft, but it's just great.
No, you're making an impact and changing lives, and I think I always look at my coaching as I'm in a really, really privileged position, because you are helping, like you say, nice people.
And every conversation I have with them, I will take as much away from that conversation as they do. And it's so if we can get the accountants switched on and happy, they're then going to take that to their client base. I grew up in a family business. My mum and dad had a village store, so I saw the impact that it has on families and how difficult it can be. And so that was always a big driver for me. When I came into accounting because I needed a job, it was the fact that I saw all those glossy brochures of accountants out there talking to clients, happy, smiling clients. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to get out there and get involved in other people's businesses. I didn't realize I'd have to be ticking bank statements for 5 years to get there, but got there in the end. And it's that, you know, if we can just focus, if we can sort of simplify the world almost and focus on helping people to become happy, everything else sort of take care of itself. You know,
it does.
We get too obsessed sometimes with the bottom line.
Yeah. And fill in those boxes, satisfying the HMRC. Oh, there's a million and one things. There's a million and one things. You were saying something before before we went live about some sort of coaching thing coming up. Are you going to tell us about this? Is something you're launching?
Yeah, it's that thing on the wall behind me. The Accountants Coaching Community is something that we launch hopefully next month now. It's a project I've been working on with a friend of mine in Australia for a couple of years now, and it's part of this looking back at the role that accountants used to have. You know, we were talking earlier. You know, we have these phrases like coaching and advisory, and we'd have to put a badge on it. But the reality is, most clients have been doing that most accountants have been doing that with their clients for a long time. You know, we've been sitting down and talking to clients about their businesses. We've just not had the impact that we could have had, and certainly not made the money that we could have done, because it hasn't been structured. And so there's a lack of confidence around it. And we wanted to put together something that showed the accountants, that they can do this, and they don't have to do a complicated program to do it. They have, in many cases, the right skills anyway, but also, as importantly, that their team can do it as well. Yeah, one of the reasons that people hold back is that they feel they don't have the resources. But this is about asking your clients the right questions and about listening to their responses and going back, in many cases, with again then the right question. So it's taken away a lot of the myths around coaching. Coaching, you don't have to be a coach to coach. Accountants are perfectly capable of coaching. If they care about their clients, they can coach. And so what we've been putting together is a whole bunch of content and videos and guides and what have you that will just then give them the structure to that, and will also help their team to become part of that process. So again, it's just, I'm fundamentally lazy. I like to make things simple, strip out all the complicated stuff, and it's just another way of doing that.
Oh, brilliant. I love it. I love it. So anyone can join?
Yeah. So it launches next month, and we're deliberately doing it on the 2 different markets because we want that interaction as well. We want UK accountants talking to Australian accountants and sharing ideas and being part of a wider community in that respect.
Oh, I love that idea. That's brilliant. Superb.
So,
when this is finished, you can drop the link in the comments in this so people can come and find it. So that's cool. How can people get hold of you, Richard?
I'm all over LinkedIn. If they just put in Richard Brewin FCA, they'll find me on LinkedIn. So I don't know where I got that idea from. We have our website, which is progressbb.co.uk. So they tend to be the sort of 2 most common links for getting hold of me. You'll find me on either of those.
Fantastic. I've got one more question for you, but before we do that, I'm just going to go to next week so we can see who I've got on next week. And I don't know if you know a guy called Jonathan Cohen.
Yes.
He goes around as the singing accountant, and so looking forward to getting Jonathan on to hear all about what he's up to. So that'll be good fun. So my final question, sir. When you were at primary school, you might have given this away when you were talking about going to university and standing in rivers, but what did you want to be when you were at primary school when you grew up?
I wanted to be a van driver.
A van driver?
Yeah. I mean, bear in mind, we're going back a bit now. So when I was at primary school, in the late 60s, then van drivers they'd pile into their Bedford van, and it was in the days when they had that slidey door outside the driver's door. You see them driving around with the door wide open.
Yeah, no seat belts.
No. There was no no health and safety in those days. And to me, it was it was just the classic king of the road thing. To my sort of 6-7-year-old mind, it was that freedom and king of the road. So I always wanted to be a van driver. I've always said if I won the lottery, people would buy a Ferrari, I'd go out and buy a van. Just for the sake of it, I'd love to be a van driver. I know it's not quite the same with Amazon these days, but back in the day.
Would you? So if you did win the lottery, right? Would you go out and buy a brand new VW T6 or whatever they are now, or would you hunt down that classic Bedford?
Well, I mean, that's a good question, actually. If I could have the classic Bedford and know that it was as reliable as the modern van, then yeah, we're back to me being lazy. I don't want to be doing the DIY on the van on Sunday morning. So if I could spend, I'd probably, if I've won the lottery, so I'd probably spend a ridiculous amount of money on someone just getting them to revamp up one of those vans for me. But yeah, it would have to have a slidey door, without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. But you'd have to do something, because the law wouldn't allow you to drive around without a t-shirt on with the door open. But
No,
yeah, I
with
remember.
your legs swinging out
Those.
the doors.
And we all remember the Sweeney with the transits.
Yes.
Absolute classic. Oh, what a lovely memory. Richard, you've been an absolutely delightful guest. Thank you so much for coming on. Good luck with your launch. If there's anything I can do to help, then please let me know. But thanks ever so much indeed. And we will see you all next week. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.